All right, guys, it's Philip. It's Toon Tactics TV. Let's not waste any time. Let's get into this match preview. Crystal Palace versus Newcastle United. We're doing a real technical breakdown, tactical breakdown of this game. And the thing about Crystal Palace is we all know Oliver Glasner, the new Crystal Palace manager who joined on the 19th of February, has created a whole new look Crystal Palace. So yes, Crystal Palace haven't beaten Newcastle in a while. And in fact, have lost a lot of their games, especially in the last 5 or 6 games. But this is a new look Crystal Palace. This isn't the Crystal Palace under Roy Hodgson, which reflected him, as all teams do. Cautious, reserved, limited, and with a squad of so many skillful, amazing players like Eze, who we're going to talk a lot about, Elise, we're going to talk a lot about, all these other young guys that are there, it just didn't suit them. Now, Oliver Glasner's 3-4-3 formation has created a high-pressing formation, attacking team, a front-footed team, has suited the personnel, has suited Elise, has suited Eze, all these guys. And as you guys can see from Crystal Palace's recent form in particular, where they've beaten West Ham just now 5-2, and they've beaten Liverpool at Anfield, away at Anfield, it really shows that this type of football, this formation suits the Crystal Palace players. So whatever's happened before in terms of Newcastle and Crystal Palace, I think is going to be different in this game, and it's going to be. I think it's going to be attack versus attack. It's going to be who is going to be front pressing from both. It's going to be defended from the front. So when I take you guys through the tactics today, what happens when Newcastle are on the ball, what happens when Crystal Palace are on the ball, it's all going to be from a attack being the best form of defense in this case. So I've got some slides up for you guys to kind of explain a little bit more about exactly what I'm talking about. So this is the Crystal Palace and West Ham game. And I have to say a couple things. Look how this is so for the limited amount of time I've been doing this. Look how Crystal Palace's formation, this is their average position over the 90 minutes. You can clearly see their 3-4-3 structure. In the limited time that I've been doing this, guys, this is the first time I've seen a formation so clear and so clear in a game that this is the average position. Now, if you look at them, there's other formations where obviously when they played Liverpool, it was a little bit more reserved, just a little bit more condensed. And obviously it's Liverpool, they pushed them back, they couldn't get the goals, but they made them pay when they played against Man City. That this formation really folded in on itself. But that's Man City, and they were methodical in their approach. They got these ballers, they got guys that can keep the balls in tight spaces where it makes this front foot pressing counter pressing team almost null and void. That's how good Man City are. Newcastle United are not Man City, and Newcastle United are not Liverpool. So Newcastle United's these tactics to this game are going to be tailor-made to Newcastle United. But just to show you guys, Crystal Palace won this game against West Ham, and a lot of the highlights, I didn't get to see the game, but from the highlights what I can see, Crystal Palace caught West Ham cold, especially through the middle. They were counter-pressing style. They were snatching the ball in midfield, snatching the ball up high, and they were just hurting West Ham every time through Elise and through Eze, really tucking in and behind Mateta, and with Wharton, who's another rising star, and Hughes adding to the kind of reinforcement behind them and really just dominating the midfield and blowing West Ham out the water. So there's a word of caution there for Newcastle as we go on. Eze, as you guys can see from this game, from the West Ham game, was star of the match, and a lot of the attacking, a lot of the good things that that Crystal Palace done, came from that side. We'll talk a lot more actually about not just about Eze and Elise, but about Mitchell's role in terms of as a wing back in this game, how it helps a lot, how it helps with Eze's creativity, how it helps him in the pressing and being able to take the ball, steal the ball from the opposition and to press. It's going to be very, very vital to everything that they do. And we'll show that in the game as well. This is the Liverpool game that I talked about earlier. Now you can still see the 3-4-3 just about, but you can see that it was just Liverpool's formation, Liverpool's team is just so far more aggressive, and it really pushed Crystal Palace back in on itself. Now, had Liverpool had their shooting boots on, they could have won this game or at least drew, but they didn't. But it shows you that one of the few solutions to this game is to high press them Crystal Palace back, play fire for fire, and just back your players, your individual ability, which Liverpool did, and or what Man City's approach is, which is also pressing up very, very high as they did. I wish I showed this on the screen, but it was through a cold, methodical, possession-based way that they have with the ballers that they've got. It was absolutely, I did see that game and it was exceptional. And Crystal Palace actually went winding up in that game. So it just shows you just how good Man City are. Again, so there's two ways in terms of being able to kind of counter-attack that. Fire, press them back, but also control possession and taking hold of the ball. Now, and this was the game, again, this is again highlighting the individual ratings in that game against Liverpool. And again, Eze will start the match. He scored that goal with, I think it was Mitchell that got to the byline, and with the cutback from Mitchell and passing it on to Eze, who slotted it home. It was an exceptionally good goal. And again, proves the point in regards to how well Palace played in that game. Let's go on to the tactics. What is it that Eddie Howe needs to do to win this game with the players that he has and the resources that he has? Let's talk about that. Right. So this is whoscored.com. This is from whoscored.com. Big up to them. Always enjoy reading, reading their stuff. Now, the only difference in the lineup that I would have is I wouldn't have Kraft as in the center, as left centre back. I'd have Burn. It would be Burn at left centre back with Kraft on the left. I agree. Hope we saw Livramento playing the last 10-15 minutes against Tottenham, and hopefully he'll take over from Jacob Murphy, who will be on the bench. Hopefully with Callum Wilson, Lewis Hall, and kind of hopefully, that kind of our bench will look a little bit more healthier than it has been for a little while. So the dynamic duo of Barnes and Isak and Gordon up front, Gomeres, Anderson is going to be, both of them been playing a real key role in this game as well against Palace, and Longstaff. Shaw and Burn are going to be very, very, very important, because we're going to talk about it in this tactics. One of the vulnerabilities to a 3-4-3 attack and press in any mode really is when the opposition has ball playing centre backs, of which we have, and we'll explain a little bit more about that as we go on with the tactics. Palace will probably stay with Mateta, Elise and Eze, who've also been their dynamic duo, have been scoring goals, creating chances. They've been pressing, stealing the ball, and they're really, really enjoying myself. And even just as a football fan, to be honest, as a football fan, watching these guys, the shackles finally taken off, them playing an expressive, aggressive front foot style, which suits them, is just amazing to see. Elise, Eze, they're both going to get big moves. I would love Newcastle to get one or the other, but probably Elise just edges it for me. I would love to have him. He's going to have a big move. He's an individual character, so it'll be interesting which team he does choose to go to. Wharton, again, another rising star, combative midfielder, can get the tackle. And obviously Anderson, the ball-playing centre-back that Crystal Palace have, and has been really heavily linked with Newcastle in the past as a possible replacement for Shaw. So we'll see how it goes with him. Muniz also plays an important role on the other side as the wing back for Palace. Now, let's get into the tactics of things. Right, guys. So this is oh, I went way too far ahead there. this is if you can. So this is, if you can imagine, the in orange is going to be is Newcastle. In the blue is Palace. Newcastle on the ball. There, this is the key aspect of Newcastle playing the ball from out the back, and this is when Palace have been most lethal, most dangerous. When the teams are playing out the back, it's been their press, and this is partly the reason why. What happens is that when the ball will, eventually will come here on the right, will be Livramento. Now, it might not be. Palace will decide who triggers their press, whether traps are going to be set. But for the sake of argument, say it's Livramento. What would happen is, right up here, as you guys can see, is going to be right here, as I showed you there. It's going to be Mitchell as a wing back coming right up onto Livramento. And what would happen is the back three would shift with Mitchell going up and Muniz joining in the back three and providing that security at the back. What then would happen is let's go to the attacking forwards. In Elise and Eze, they will press upon our defensive mids. It could be which will likely be Bruno, who collects the ball a lot, and probably Anderson, who are both good on the ball and can take the ball either on the half turn and or back to goal. So those individual battles are going to be key. Can Eze and Elise take the ball of Bruno and Anderson? If they could, it could be absolutely devastating. So it's going to be absolutely crucial. Obviously, Arteta pressing our back line, our back forwards. Where I think is going to be key is, it's not just Anderson and Bruno. It's going to be Shaw and Burr, who are both very, very, very comfortable on the ball, and they'll be able to move the ball about. I'll be really interested to see what will be Eddie Howe's plan, because he'll know that Palace are going to intend to take the ball off either Bruno or Anderson, whoever comes to collect it. I think they would love for it to be Longstaff, because he's not as good on the ball as those two. But I think the focus, if I was Eddie Howe and I was playing the ball from the back, it would be either to Anderson or to Bruno. But then at the same time, he could use them guys as the decoy and just get the ball onto Longstaff there in the number 10. But Longstaff won't be alone. He'll be pressed by either Adam Wharton, or I think on this side it's going to be Hughes. And I'll show you this as well. And so this is where you can see that 3-4-3 allows Palace to have that central midfield dominance. And that's why they've been able to counter-press teams so well, especially as you guys would have seen against West Ham, in devastating effect. So Newcastle are going to have, and Eddie is going to have a real solution for this. And it's not just going to be the tactical one where, they're going to try and get a spare man and they're going to shift, they're going to make space, which is all going to be important. But it's going to be how they play on the ball. They're going to be really, really good on the ball. It's going to be an intensive atmosphere in Selhurst Park. The crowds are going to be cheering. It's going to be dark. It's going to be under the lights. All those things are going to have to show character. If Newcastle can break that press, Palace will be very, very vulnerable to the counter attack. And this is the same. This is the same formation as what we just talked about, but with the names. And I wanted to highlight this to kind of show you the individual battles. So if Newcastle, Dubravka plays the ball out from the back, gets it onto Cher, who passes onto Livramento. Mitchell goes straight on into Livramento. You can see Eze and Mateta essentially trying to crowd that bit out with Cher and Livramento, and essentially force them into either kicking it long or passing it maybe back to Dubravka, and just keep and then taking even more dominance in that midfield and forcing Newcastle back. Elise will be probably either be Elise or Eze, or Elise or Eze, depending on how they want to do it, to Mark Gomes. It'll be interesting to see how aggressive Eze is. Is Eze also going to go into Livramento or into Shaw to try and block it out, leaving the space behind him of Longstaff? How much respect are they going to have for Longstaff in that particular position? Or is Longstaff and Gomes going to play, kind of be fluid in between themselves, which Newcastle do really well. Gomes doesn't just stay in the number 6 role, just stay in that one zone. He plays all across the midfield. And I think Palace's focus will be Gomes, will be Bruno, who's the one who can take the ball back to goal. And we know that back to goal doesn't mean the goal's just there, and your back to goal could be on any side of the pitch where you're facing your own goal, but are able to take the ball with your back to the opposition goal, take it and turn around, successfully beating the person that's pressing you, marking you, and laying it off. So that's back to goal. Bruno's one of the best in the business to do that. Elliot Anderson's also very good at doing that. And he's added that extra control and dynamism into the midfield. And athleticism, he's able to work up and down. So it'd be interesting to see how Anderson, Bruno, and Longstaff play amongst each other and remain fluid. Can they confuse the press between Elise, Eze, and Mateta? Who marks who? Because if that key element of the battle Palace lose out on, all of a sudden it opens them up to a sensational counter-attack from Gordon, Isak, and Barnes. And we all know what could happen. It could be devastating consequences if that doesn't work out for Crystal Palace very well, and especially if it happens time and time again. So those key battles, especially from the front, will be key. Wharton, Hughes are going to be pressing up on Anderson and Longstaff, and the backline of Crystal Palace is going to shift over. Muniz is going to come back, and it's going to essentially be a back four with Mitchell helping in the press up front. How that's going to be sorted out, that's in terms of how it looks and the shape of it. It gives them that dominance. But again, as I've said, it's going to depend on how good Newcastle are in defense. I think it's going to be key what Bruno Anderson do, and how obviously Longstaff is using that particular way, and how aggressively are Palace going to press. If I was to hazard a guess without knowing Oliver Glasner too well, I don't think he wants to be caught in the middle of a mid-block at home in a home game. And I think he's going to be very, very aggressive, especially in the first 20 minutes. And the first 20 minutes of this game is going to be absolutely key. I think they're going to go gun-ho. Not gun-ho, but they're going to be very aggressive in their press. They've just beaten West Ham 5-2. In the previous game, they've beaten Liverpool 1-0. So why not just go for it again? I think they've got very little to lose. So that first 20 minutes is going to be key for them. The next part, the next aspect is going to be, and this is shifting again. So this is shifting to the other side. So if Newcastle play the ball at the back and the balls it goes to Kraft, what happens on the other side is Mitchell goes back and makes up the back four with Richard, Anderson, and Klein, and Muniz goes up and he goes against Kraft with Elise. This time, we'll see what Elise does, but he's going to be trying to block the passing channel to Gomes. Wharton's going to be on Anderson. Hughes is going to be on Longstaff. Eze and Mateta will be interested in what they do. Mateta's going to be going for trying to close down Burn, and Eze might be staying on Shaw. We'll leave Livramento on the other side of the pitch by himself. Or it'll be interesting how they do that press. Whether they're going to be as aggressive as that, or are they going to set a trap? Are they going to make it look like they're not going to go for Burn, but then as soon as it gets up, they'll go for him, which will be interesting because Burn is again good on the ball, and how they do that. And again, the individual battles in the midfield, as mentioned earlier, Anderson, Wharton, Gomes, Elise probably, or Gomes, Wharton, depending on how they want to mix it, on which side of the pitch. And Kraft is probably the vulnerable one. He's not as good as Livramento on the other side of the ball. Livramento, we know he can take on the ball. He can run with it. He's got this unique ability of being able to keep the ball even when he's like in an entanglement with somebody else. He keeps the ball. And if he gets past Mitchell, for instance, on the other side, again, very vulnerable. Eze would have to try and track back. Gordon, the next stage is Gordon. Hughes is not as athletic as not as fast as Gordon. Is not as fast as Livramento. It leaves them very, very, very vulnerable, even with the back four at the back. In that sense, so those are going to be a real key battles that are going to be there between Newcastle and Palace. So this is the other side of it with Palace played from out the back. They're going to be playing from out the back, and Newcastle are going to be defending. But again, as we said before, attack is the best form of defense in this game for both teams. So this is Newcastle defending, but they're pressing high up as Crystal Palace are playing out from the back. And this is where I suspect Palace this will be Palace's weak point. And we saw that the few goals that Crystal Palace did concede to West Ham, Henderson had a blunder with the ball. He's not a goalkeeper that's as good with his feet, in my view, from what I've seen. And they're going to be reluctant to pass the ball back to Henderson, in my view. And I think Newcastle will be trying to force them. Anyway, so this is in the sense of where Newcastle are pressing up high. Palace are playing the ball from at the back. The ball, in this sense, goes to Klein. So what happens is if Palace are playing out the back from Klein's side, Muniz drops back together to help with Richards and Anderson with Klein on the ball. Henderson is going to be the main ball player in that back four. He's absolutely brilliant with the ball, long pass and short pass and through balls into the midfield is absolutely fantastic. So Newcastle's pressing game has to be on point. Otherwise, the way the 4-3 is, it could leave them vulnerable if Isak, for instance, doesn't close the passing channels to Wharton, who can lay it off to Eze or to Elise and put Newcastle into a real pickle. However, where the 4-3-3 has a slight advantage is that because we'll play with a back four, it allows us a number of things. So the ball goes over to Klein. Mitchell pushes up. Gordon can, because we've got the three attackers in Gordon, Isak, and Barnes. What it allows us to do is Gordon pushes up on Klein, Isak pushes up on Anderson, and Barnes can push up. Well, he can be free to push up on who he wants, either Richards or probably on Richards or Wharton himself. Wharton would have to follow them if he wants to get the ball. Guimaraes, I think, would be the key in this. Guimaraes, I think, would be very aggressive in the press, and he'll probably support Isak, and he's going to push up, forcing Hughes or Wharton to come back with him, and then opening that gap between Elise and Eze, who will either be forced to. They've got a choice to make: either stay up front and wait for that ball, to bet on that ball to come back, or join in the press, leaving the wider gap between them and Mateta, and leaving the Mateta isolated against Byrne, Kraft, and Shaw, and he doesn't have a lot of hope in beating them that way. Livramento, and this is where the 4-3-3 becomes really, really useful. Livramento becomes just before to Livramento, Longstaff and Anderson in that sense will be responsible in marking Eze and Elise, which is not easy. So that those again key, unless Longstaff and Anderson I think Anderson will be, the big focus will be between Elise and Longstaff, that key battle there. And if the ball can get through to Elise, it could really, really hurt us. You can give it to Mateta. So those key battles are key. Going to Livramento, this is the key part of 4-3-3 and having the four at the back. Livramento becomes the spare man. And Livramento's got a number of choices he can make in that press. He can either push up on, he can stay with Mitchell, blocking another avenue for them, or he can force him back by pushing up together with Gordon. Because if Gordon, really aggressively pushing on Crystal Palace and forcing Mitchell back, because what I haven't seen yet, and I saw the game I saw Man City is the Man City game. I haven't seen yet all the games of Palace, but I want to know how they respond to kind of a really aggressive press. Man City is different to us because of their way of the ball, and they can really that 3-4-3 formation can really collapse on itself, and it's very difficult for it to adapt in that sense. So I wonder how aggressively Howe wants to be in this game. We've had 12 days rest, so why not just push up? And we'll have a number of other players on the bench, in particular Callum Wilson, who can come on for one of the fours, probably Isak as well. So why not really be aggressive, especially in the first 60 minutes or so of the game, and see where it takes us. How do Crystal Palace respond when there's a team that's as aggressive in the press as they are? So again, as I've said, the best form of defense is going to be attack for Newcastle, and I think this is going to be the real vulnerable part for Crystal Palace, because I don't know too much about Anderson. I know Klein isn't as good on the ball. Anderson's going to be key in this. How he passes the ball and to whom. I know that Wharton's really good in the tackle, and Hughes obviously is one of their midfielders who's decent on the ball. But can they deal with a Newcastle United press? Can they be relied upon that? Or are Elise and Eze going to have to do two jobs at once? They're going to have to come and collect the ball as well as push up and do, and then have to run with the ball as well, which they can do, but it leaves them with a lot of work. So if Newcastle can force Elise and Eze to come back in order to collect the ball or to help Crystal their back line and their defensive mids to break the ball, to break the defense, to break the press, whilst leaving Mateta and isolating Mateta by himself, it's a job well done by Newcastle, because they can just take the ball, recycle the ball, and just keep on doing the same thing again and hurting Palace overall. So this is the real vulnerable part of the game. I think is one of the key elements of the game. I'll be interested to see how Palace respond to that. It was difficult to tell at the Man City game because Man City can do that to anybody. So I'll be really interested to see how Crystal Palace respond to it. And if they're not good at it, as I suspect they might not be, they could be in real trouble. Finally, this is what happens on the other side. Should Palace choose to give the ball onto Richards, it'll be the same thing. This time, Kraft will come and press up on Muniz, who essentially the Palace back line will shift. Mitchell comes back. Klein shifts him to the other side, shifts him to the right centre back. Anderson into left centre back. Richards into the left back. He gets the ball, or Anderson gets the ball. He'll be playing between them. What happens then is Muniz pushes up a little bit. Kraft will come and meet him. Barnes will come and meet Richards. He'll be the main person to kind of to get at the ball there. Wharton will have to come back to see if he can collect the ball, with Bruno Gomes probably being the advancing number 10, being aggressive in the press, has been all season, been really good at that. Isak again being aggressive in that role, pressing up against Anderson. Gordon pressing up against Hughes. They've been really good at that. Joined by Longstaff, joined by Anderson. It'll be interesting to see how Eze and Elise respond. Are they confident that their backline, that their guys at the back can break the press? And if they're not, those guys will then will be wanting to come back and to support them. And if they do that, they leave Mateta by himself up front. And against Livramento, Shaw, and Burn, he doesn't have a hope in doing that. And so if Newcastle continue doing that in terms of pressing really well and forcing Palace back, what may happen is they might just leave Shaw and Burn together with Mateta, and Livramento pushing even further up and adding to the press, adding to the aggression, adding to the attack. So again, that's why I think this is going to be the key aspect to this game, and we'll be seeing how it pans out. So guys, that's my kind of overall breakdown of the game. How the Newcastle defending by pressing, whether the left side or the right side of Palace. Palace defending against Newcastle, again being aggressive in their press as well, from the left side to the right side, really trying to take charge of that midfield, really trying to take charge of, have dominion of that midfield. How do Newcastle respond? You know, we've been out of the game for 12 days. Hopefully they wouldn't start the game as they did against Fulham. If they did, I think they'll be in real trouble. However, if they start the game as they did against Tottenham, then I think we'll be fine. And I think the key element will be the start, because once Palace will aim to take charge of that midfield, especially when Newcastle have the ball as quickly as possible, and it's going to be hard to come out of that if Newcastle are at the races. I think they will be, even though I'm a little bit worried about the momentum. I would have loved to have Newcastle play last week after beating Tottenham. That's fine. I think I have to just trust that Eddie Howe's going to have the mojo ready. I think Palace are especially vulnerable when they have the ball in comparison to Newcastle, because we've got two ball-playing centre-backs, include Livramento in that should he play, which I think he will. It becomes a little bit more difficult for Crystal Palace, especially if Newcastle are at the race and are ready. So I back Newcastle to win this game 3-1. That's my prediction. That's my conclusion. With all of that being said, should both teams be playing at full tilt and ready to go? I think because Newcastle have overall the better quality of player, and these players have been playing together a lot longer than Crystal Palace. Glasner came in February 19th. They've had 2 months. It's been a really good 2 months for them. Really successful, some really good results. But they're still learning about how to play in this way. And I think they're especially vulnerable in playing out from the back. In terms of pressing Newcastle, I think they'll be a little bit better, probably a lot better. But again, Newcastle have the ball playing centre backs, have the ball playing midfield, I think, in order to do that. And if Newcastle are at the races, and with the attacking through that we've got in Isak, Gordon, and Barnes, whose short conversion rate is really, really high and through the roof, we could really hurt Palace, even though we're playing away from home. So I back Newcastle to win this game 3-1. But guys, let me know what you think. What other aspects of the game do you think is important to remember? Who do you think is going to be man of the match? Who do you think is going to score? What do you think is going to be score predictions? Let me know, guys. And until next time, take care and God bless.